Hello and welcome to another video mini from Disasterwise, a series of quick dives into the myth, math and management of crisis and disaster. Today I'll be talking about how to manage an effective meeting. People often complain about how many meetings they have to attend, when what they're really complaining about is how many unproductive meetings they have to attend. With this in mind, good disaster managers convene as few meetings as are required and keep those that they do convene short, focused, inclusive, and action-oriented. Hello, my name is James Shepherd-Barron. I'm a disaster risk management consultant and founder of Disasterwise.org. Disaster management meetings are of 4 different types. Although the tensions and timings will be different for each, they all share the same common characteristics. The first is a strategic planning meeting. Normally this is done during the preparedness phase. Operational decision making, smaller technical meetings, sometimes called technical advisory group meetings or TAGs, and then much larger plenary information sharing meetings. They may be in person, online, or a blend of both. Before calling a meeting, ask yourself if the meeting is really necessary. What's its real purpose? Clarity around your meeting's purpose is essential as it dictates who needs to be at the table and what pre-work needs to be done before you convene. Consider whether it could be done better remotely, i.e. by Zoom or by Teams. There are over 20 stakeholder groups involved in a large-scale international disaster response. For the Haiti earthquake of 2010, there were over 800 NGOs involved in the health sector alone. Large or small, each group is more complex and more complicated than they appear. Yet somehow each has to be brought into the coordination process as each is equally important. You've got host governments to think about, bilateral donors, diplomatic missions, UN entities, the whole Red Cross family, IFRC, the National Society and ICRC in some cases, a whole raft of international NGOs, national NGOs and community-based organizations, some of which will be faith-based. You've got the media, the military, academic institutions and so on. For a small decision-making meeting, which a strategic advisory group or SAG is, you've got to keep the meeting down to 15 and certainly no more than 20 people, otherwise you'll never get anywhere. You'll need the coordinator and the assistant. You'll need the government co-lead if he or she is not already the coordinator, and frankly nowadays they should be. 3 international NGOs should be enough, 2 nationals, including the National NGO Forum rep, the Red Cross, other clusters depending on the agenda, and civil military liaison. In terms of donors, the media and the UN's Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, they might want to be there, in which case they can. But they can observe rather than necessarily take part. This is a photo of the UN Security Council chamber. Note the donut seating arrangement. The core decision-making group in a circle at the center, with advisors sitting in a second row just behind. They cannot engage directly without an invitation from the chair. Observers should be encouraged and can sit or stand outside of this donut. Note the tiered seating and translation booths, as some form of both will be needed for large-scale international response coordination. Now I'll just run through the before, during and after a meeting. Before the meeting, this is when all the hard work is really done. From the administrative point of view, you've got to select the venue. A university hall is good, a hotel room is equally good, all have to be paid for. The seating plan, as I was hinting at earlier, circular is good. Translation services, there are all sorts of different ways of doing this, but they must be there. I favour double screen projection, one screen for the actual meeting, what's going on in the meeting, and the other for the note taker to summarize what's actually going on in real time and or translate by projecting, as we did in Haiti for the earthquake response, into a second screen in almost real time. You will need a microphone, so you need amplification. Everybody needs a microphone because you'll be recording the session. It's always useful to have IT backup for when things don't go right. and crucially have refreshments. In terms of planning the meeting, then the agenda is crucial, of course. Then deciding who will participate, because the agenda will decide that for you. Make sure you send out the invitations. This might involve a series of pre-meetings. And most crucial of all is make sure that you've appointed a note taker. And this could be, and should be nowadays, the assistant coordinator or even an intern. In terms of the meeting itself, the success or otherwise will depend to a great extent on the level of engagement in planning and preparation beforehand. In fact, investment in this aspect is the hidden art of truly effective disaster risk management. Having convened the meeting, make introductions. Don't need to introduce everybody, certainly not in a plenary meeting, just those who are newly arrived. Establish the ground rules, what to do about muting phones and translation, things like this. Restate the purpose, quickly run through what the agenda is. People will probably want to change the order and add things to it. Resist the temptation to do that. At the very least, add things to any other business. Then facilitate the discussions around each agenda item. Make sure that each action point is summarized and that it is clear who has to do something and by when. If you need to expand on the terms of reference for any group that coalesces around that action point, you can always meet after the meeting itself to discuss that in more detail. Run through any other business, making sure that this is where you pick up on any items that were held over from the previous meeting, because if there's still issues, they need to be prioritized. And then provide a summary of summaries and make sure you know when the next meeting is, and then distribute the meeting notes at least within 24 hours. So once the meeting's over and you've distributed the meeting notes, follow up in person with each focal point for any of the action points decided to check that they're happy with what they have to get on with. And then make sure that you communicate. Tell the world what you're doing by updating the web page. Here are my top tips for productive meetings. Managing time means starting on time. It's disrespectful to those who made the effort and wastes everybody else's if you don't. Don't ask for approval of the minutes or matters outstanding. A coordination meeting is not a corporate boardroom. Put matters outstanding from the previous meeting at the end, as it's highly likely that these issues will already have been covered. Accept items under any other business only if really urgent. Otherwise, put them on the agenda for the next meeting. Limit your numbers. It's almost impossible to conduct a productive meeting with more than 20 people around the table. So what you do, as I described before, those you need put around the table, everybody else can be an observer. That means applying the donut. If you want to have the media in the room, my advice would be don't. If they really want to be there, let them film at the beginning, but they can't be in the room during the meeting. They can be made available afterwards if that's what they want. Avoid humor. Half the people won't understand your jokes and the other half will be probably mortified by them. Always use microphones, and anyway you're going to be recording, but you can't always hear yourself even if you think you can. I tend to use two screens if I can, one for the agenda itself and the other for the translations in real time for those who want to see it in another language, and it's very useful for summarizing the action point, who is to do what by when. Be ruthless with setting up subgroups, technical advisory groups and the like. They should not need more than 72 hours to come up with whatever it is they've been tasked to do. Nowadays it's normal to record meetings, and I always like to offer refreshments after the meeting because often you get more done in the margins before and after a meeting than you do when actually in the room, virtual or otherwise. Here are just some quick tips about effective remote meetings. There are only two things you need to know about these meetings. One, someone other than the chair must moderate. And two, that the principles of good communication still apply. Eye contact, leaning in, that kind of thing. Yes, you have to establish the ground rules, but you could talk less and interrupt more. You have to in a remote meeting if you're going to include everyone. Allow for pre and post chats. Make sure that cameras are on and microphones muted. And yes, be patient, but make sure that anything that's done remotely is moderated. People will try to gain access to your meeting that should not be there, so it needs to be password protected. But the whole thing needs to be moderated so that somebody else in the background can have a look at what's going on in the chat. Thanks for your time. I hope you found this short presentation useful. If you want to know more about this or any other disaster-related topic, please take a look at disasterwise.org, where you can also subscribe. Stay safe wherever you are, and until the next time, goodbye.